Hey guys, VSIC here. This will be my only video today. I'm just way too damn tired. But with that being said, I'm talking about, how to endure and survive. And I don't necessarily tell you everything that I know about this kind of stuff. I mean, not that I could really remember everything at the top of my head, because it's just a lot of information. I'm a person that's always had a good muscle memory. But, that's kind of one thing you have to consider when it comes to enduring and surviving and adapting, just period. Like, you have to kind of get to know your strengths. Just like I said, I have good muscle memory. I remember plenty of times, to this day, sometimes I won't remember a password at the top of my head right sometimes, but then sometimes I'll be typing, and as I'm typing, I remember the password just like that. So sometimes it's just like I don't even have to remember the password. All I have to do is just start doing it, by muscle memory, and I'll just do it like that. And it's the same when I play video games sometimes. Sometimes we'll forget what button I press, and lots of times I don't even think about it. So sometimes, yeah, I'm going to forget, right? You know? So, but then I'll pick up the controller, and since I'm so used to playing the game, it's just like I'll just start doing the stuff. And then sometimes people will ask me, hey, what button do you use to do something like this and that? It's like, oh, wait, actually, what do I do? Because I never think about it right when I'm playing video games, right? So, and from just over time, not even thinking about what I'm doing, when these people ask me what to do when, pressing a certain button to do something, I was like, wait, actually, I don't even know. And then so I'll just be like, click. It's like, oh, that's what button I press. You know what I mean? I just do it by muscle memory. And so, yeah, again, just get to know all of your strengths. And sometimes you actually might be surprised at what strengths you have and how many people actually can't do the same things that you can do, actually. I mean, and also when it boils down to it, I mean, you aren't going to have the same strengths as everybody else. We're all made to do different things naturally. We're natural at different things than other, people are basically is what I'm trying to say. So just don't worry about, about not being able to do the same things as somebody else. I used to be worried about that kind of stuff too. Of course, I think pretty much a lot of us are growing up when we're younger. But then, when I was first homeschooled, I learned that seriously didn't really matter. Plus, I kind of got into reading history. Also, I got into reading. I used to think that reading was just for nerds when I was a kid, but of course, eventually I grew to like it because I actually learned the actual importance of reading. I mean, if you can't even read, you can't get into the NFL, But and that's something that a lot of sometimes schools won't teach you, is that it's very important to read. And I would, tell anybody that, especially nowadays, it is very important to learn how to read. I mean, geez, if you didn't know how to read, how would you even be able to read somebody's text, on your smartphone? I mean, it is just very, very important nowadays. Now, over 100 years ago, maybe it wasn't as important, you know, but, even at the time, it was very important. You know, it's part of the reason why they wouldn't, let black people have education at the time is because they knew at the time if they let black people have education at the time that they would be able to rise in power. Education is a very, very important thing. It really is. Now, somebody doesn't just become the president just because they know how to kick a football. It's education. It's education academically, and, there's many different ways to be smart. There isn't just one intelligence. And that's also something else that I learned when I was homeschooled. Again, That, and also I, kind of partially got into learning, survival skills a bit, just like, if there's no clean water around, how do you make clean water? It's like, well, just take some water, obviously. And then the first thing you need to do is put that water and get your t-shirt out and put the water through the t-shirt to get all of the dirt out. Then you also need to boil the water, and then you need to put a sedative in it to make the water actually clean so that it's actually drinkable. Now, what they used to do is that they used to put alcohol in water. They used to put the same amount of alcohol in water as they do beer now. So just put a little bit of alcohol in it or something else that's kind of like that, that will actually, clean the water, make sure that there isn't any, diseases in the water, and then you're good to go. I mean, you have to wait a few minutes after you do that, but still, you're good to go. And, it's also very interesting to learn, how to make fire, all that. What to do with, you're in the case of getting homeless, how to get new skills. One very good way of how to get new skills is to get a hobby in it. Just plain and simple, just get into a hobby of it. And this is part of the reason why I have over time become very multi-skilled. And, also I tend to sometimes, get to know a lot about something. And then over time, I'll either get bored of it because I either got to know everything about it, or I got to know the things I needed or wanted to know about it. And then I moved on to the next thing, just like, with Love Dolls, when I first discovered them, obviously, and, guns, planes, World War II, etc., etc., etc. So, again, just also be patient with yourself. Be very, very patient with yourself, because let me tell you something, the world is not going to be patient with you. So you have to be patient with yourself. That's, and the fact that when you are rejected by, society, kind of, and those are, of course, the people that you need to get to know. But you also need to understand that every step of the way, these people are going to try and find a weakness on you, and they will try to exploit that weakness. And what you need to do is that you need to become aware of when they're trying to take advantage of you. You also need to be aware of just, man, everything. Just everything. You need to be aware of your surroundings, etc. And also, you have to learn over time that sometimes you're just going to have to replace everything that you used to love and care about. Just like I used to really love going out, and I used to really love having all these friends and everything when I was a kid. I was kind of more extroverted at the time than was introverted at the time, right? And over time, I had to just adapt to not having so many friends around, etc. I just really had. It took a little while to get used to, but I got used to it. And I always think it's funny how, nowadays I'll go to my jobs and, that I go to sometimes, and I will meet these, traditional people sometimes, hard labor workers, etc. And I'm, of course, not going to tell them that I've had it harder than them, because I think having a harder life than somebody else can be kind of a relative thing. I sometimes think that they have had it harder in a different way. However, the problem is that I have had such an effed up life that they can't possibly understand my effed up life. You know what I mean? So to them, I'm the weirdo, right? And so that's another thing that I've had to adapt to. I've had to adapt to being the weirdo. But, in order to adapt to that, I've had to be the honest weirdo, where act like, yes, I'm weird, but, I'm harmless. I've kind of had to make a little bit of a joke about it, right? And not just, take every little thing personally. That's just how it works. But, again, it is very hard, though, sometimes getting people to understand because they've never been in a situation where they have had to adapt and change their lifestyle so drastically like I've had to. So, again, it just makes it very hard for people like that to understand you. And when you have to constantly defend yourself, right? You are constantly in a self defense state when you're in that kind of situation. I mean, when I was younger, I was able to, of course, go around and talk to people left and right. But when I wasn't in that situation and I was, cast out, you aren't in that situation where you can just go around and talk to people and be like, hey, especially when you're in bigger cities, you can't just wave to people all the time. In the city and bigger towns, the only types of people that talk to you on the street normally are people of business, lots of times, or people that you know, obviously. But I digress. Because other than that, lots of times, the only other people, and this is the reason why, if you try to wave at people, let's say in California, or let's say in Des Moines, maybe, or just any bigger city place like Chicago, they aren't going to wave at you back because they're going to think that you're just some robber. And of course, the best way to avoid a robber in the city is to just ignore them or tell them to fuck off. That is basically the best way to just, deter robbers, right? So again, and oh, and of course, I'm just jumping right into this when I'm talking about this. But over time, I've had to adapt to certain different things because, after getting out of homeschool, I went back into, regular school, blah, blah, blah. Then I had to adapt to that. And, I had to be very laid back and I had to be very creative as well. If I just thought one way would work with my situation, then I would have just failed, obviously. Because the reason why is because my situation just kept on changing and changing and changing. And so I always had to just think outside the box. If I just kept on thinking, oh, I could just do this and that, and I'll just be fine, well, yeah, that wouldn't have worked. I always had to just come up with new solutions, think outside the box, and just adapt. And that just was not easy. And sometimes I just had to flat out get used to it. And again, that's what it seems like some people just don't understand because, they've, again, never had that experience, which again also makes it harder on me because they don't fucking understand. Oh my God. I can't tell you how many times I haven't gotten a job just because these fucking a-holes and idiots just do not fucking understand me. Because my life has been so freaking different. And of course, what can you say? That's just life sometimes. People just inherently do not understand other people, even if they're a little bit different from them. That's just how life is, of course. A lot of people here, let's say in Iowa, are very isolated, but, there are also a lot of people that are isolated, in other states as well. And this is, of course, something that you have to understand. And I also had to adapt by getting to know various different groups of people and how they operate and how they talk to each other, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, you could say it took me a while to get used to it. But again, I digress. And nowadays, I finally have at least kind of found a job that is at least reasonable. You also kind of have to learn, the jobs that are legit. Because to be quite frank, a lot of jobs, a lot of people are corrupt. And if you don't know what you're doing in some area, lots of times workplaces just do not care to teach you things. They don't care to invest in you, etc. And then it's like, oh, again, after I got out of high school, back when kind of the I would call it the mini depression happened between 2008 and a few years after that, like, and I graduated in the middle of that. Then that gave me something else that I had to get overcome again, and so on and so forth. I mean, Jesus Christ, it was just one thing after another at the time. I couldn't even get a job that was $10 an hour at the fucking time. I mean, Jesus, that that was just a big deal. Yeah, really, really shitty situation. I remember I had to used to work constantly. At one point, I remember I used to want to be in a relationship, but then I had to drop that because I was just working constantly. I had to work on my studies. I had to work. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. The work it takes. I swear. It's funny. It's like when you try to prove yourself, and even if you accomplish that goal, sometimes it's like, they don't, they are not going to let you prove yourself. Let me tell you, they are not going to let you prove yourself. Oh my God. But of course, I'll say nowadays, I'm doing just fine. At least for now. That, and I'm also lucky that I wasn't laid off of my job, earlier this year, thankfully. So I'm actually doing pretty well. Also, one thing to keep in mind is to, save money and also not go into debts. Always try to have emergency money in your stash. Always try to have emergency money. I cannot tell you how many times that emergency money came in handy. Oh my God. Oh my God. Always have emergency money stashed away. Never just spend all of your money. Never, ever, ever, ever. If anything, when it comes to spending your money, invest in it. Invest in your money a lot. And never just spend it. At least most of the time. But anyway. I guess I will just end this video. I mean, not that there isn't more to talk about, but I think that's about enough. That being said, if you have any more questions on this topic or, what I'm talking about, like basically, you just put them in the comments, etc. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.